Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to some more game dev. We're coming back with, what are we doing today actually? Right, meta progression. So yesterday we kind of did a breakdown of kind of playing the build, making some notes on some things, and trying to schedule out a bit of the next week. It's looking pretty good. We kind of also did a general breakdown of all of the kind of major kind of standout things that I was noticing in the build. I'm sure there's more things that I could write down and take screenshots of general polish and bugs. We kind of went through a bunch of these things. I've kind of reorganized them a little bit to kind of make them a little bit clearer what categories or what they're related to. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with where we got to at the end of yesterday's stream. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the new meta progression, which is something I hadn't really talked too much about. So let's do the thing. Let's do the talk. So what do we currently have? So if we take a look at the existing version, what we were prototyping before was this idea that like when we move around the environment, we're revealing tiles and we defeat enemies, and then eventually we run out of time. So if I debug run out of time, we see that we gain X amount of experience for the tiles revealed and X amount of experience for the enemies defeated. And this was kind of my first shot at like, let's build a progression system. And the idea is as we level up the goddess's power, we gain experience points, and those experience points allow us to go into our skill screen and buy more skill nodes in order to upgrade our character's stats, the strength, our defense, etc., as well as to kind of unlock new abilities and gain more mechanics, essentially. And this has very much like a mobile gamey type feel to it in a lot of ways. Like everything you do leads to one central progress bar, and that progress bar is like the main thing that like everything feeds into and then gives you rewards for. But the more I've been thinking about it the last few weeks when I haven't been able to like work on the project directly, but just like been thinking about kind of like what is a run looking like, what is the gameplay looking like, the more I feel like this just doesn't make sense to me. So, okay, here's the thing. Having the progress bar all appear at the end of a run, the idea that I had for it was that we want runs to feel rewarding. We're going to have these situations where the player is going to go through a run, they're going to fight some enemies, and at some point they might not even make it to the next checkpoint, or they might take enough damage that they will just be defeated, and they're going to have their run end. And my thought process was that, okay, well, when we have that run end, we want it to feel rewarding. So here's a bunch of like stat increases and level ups for your progress on that run, so that when you finish a run, you're like, oh man, look at all these skill points I get to go spend. And I immediately am excited to go over here to the scrying pool and start spending those points to upgrade my character before I go on another run. So it's meant to be like almost like this carrot kind of, you know, chocolate bar kind of experience of like, oh, I finished a run, it really felt bad to lose, but then I gained a bunch of stuff that I can now spend. And so that's fun. But what I'm finding is in practice, it feels more like I'm doing a run, and then the run ends, and then a bunch of information is given to me that I just don't really have any context for. Like, oh, I guess I revealed 140 tiles. That seems like a lot of tiles. Cool, and I gained some experience, and I defeated 4 enemies. Neat, I get some experience for that. It just doesn't feel like I care, and oftentimes I'm just like, okay, don't care, let's move on, I want to get into the goddess realm, and it just feels like it's slowing down the play experience and the loop. And when I'm playing the game, I'm not getting that constant feedback of progress. Like, it's really fun revealing the tiles, it's really neat seeing all of this progress, but I don't get any immediate gameplay progress from it. So there are ways we could resolve this without ripping up the entire system. We could have it so that every time we take a step, there's like a little bit of experience that flies out of each tile and goes into our character. But I feel like that's going to get really like muddy depending on the number of tiles revealed, and it's just going to be a lot of motion that I think isn't going to be as fun. Yeah, so I the more I think about it, the more I feel like this idea is neat, but again, it's more of like a mobile centric, or kind of like just a don't think about it, just like here's all your experience, you just feel good for doing anything, like almost like idle. It's a little idly too with this central progress bar, and I just don't think that design is what we're looking for. So I've been thinking about like Fire Emblem, which is something I had played recently, and I really like the constant feedback that every time you perform an action and attack an enemy, you get like a little bit of experience towards that unit, and it's like this constant, like, you know, information of like, oh look, I'm doing well, I'm getting stuff, and that feedback is pretty frequent overall. Now, that being said, that game tends to have a much slower paced combat. You send a unit in, the unit does its attack, and then there's maybe a little battle animation if you have that turned on, and then you see a little bit of the progress bar fill up. But what we're trying to go for is more of this like fast paced, like we're doing a bunch of different attacks. And there is a little bit of fear if we do something with like experience on every action, it's going to feel also pretty overwhelming, because there's already so much information flying off. It might become too much for the player to keep track of. I think that's a real fear, but I want to at least try doing something that feels a little bit more in the player's face with when they're making progress and gaining rewards, essentially. So with that being said, let's take a look at what we're currently rewarding the player for doing, and that's primarily revealing tiles and defeating enemies. We'll talk about defeating enemies second, because as I said, I think that one's a little bit more complicated, but revealing tiles, I think, doesn't need to be this elaborate. So each time we step, we reveal a tile. And I think one of the main pieces of feedback we've gotten from the last few streams and videos that we've done is that this revealing tile stuff is kind of neat and not seen a lot of other folks doing anything like it. I don't know if that's entirely true. I think I can think of a few other games that do something at least similar, but I think the feedback we're getting from people is that it's really neat and interesting. And it's fun to fill in all of the tiles. And I built the tile revealing into the end screen that we had and the progression because it feels like something the player already wants to do, because it's enjoyable. It's just innately fun to try and fill something in. And so because of that, we're trying to build the systems in such a way that the thing that the player already wants to do and they find rewarding is also rewarding in terms of a meta progression and progression of the character. But I don't want it to be part of the end screen. So me and Drixie have been talking about like other ways that we could make this interesting. And I think one of the most fun things we've come up with as an idea, and I don't know if this will work long term, but I definitely think it's got potential and it's worth prototyping, is what if every tile that revealed is like incrementing like a progression or progress meter to show what percentage of the room that you're currently in is revealed. And then when you fully reveal a section of the world, we have some sort of like reward moment, potentially a cutscene that has like a treasure, drop in from the sky, or maybe a special rare enemy spawns that you want to defeat for materials, something along those lines. So there's a reward event. We aren't 100% sure what those rewards would be, but I think the structure of filling in all of the tiles in a room and then getting some sort of reward for doing that makes a ton of sense. So I think I want to start there today. We did a ton of talking last stream about things we need to do, and I've already spent 10 minutes talking about these concepts in this stream. I think I just want to dive in and start building something. Let's switch up to... I like this Tiny Trials one. Let's do this. This is fun. Okay, so with that background music chosen, let's dig into how do we do this. So we have a room. That room is essentially a series of data points which we can look at inside the project somewhere. Yeah, we haven't really done a lot of like coding in the last few days, mostly just been planning, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've touched the project. So forgive me if I don't remember where everything is, but I believe this should be under not sequences, not prefabs, but data, dungeons? Yes. So we're in room 2 right now, and that has 170 tile datas in it. And if we look at where this is used in game, that's handled by the board component, which has a list of all the tiles and a list of all the visible tiles. We can get a list of the reveal tiles. We can set tiles to be revealed. It feels like it should be relatively straightforward that every time we reveal a tile, we just increment a value. But is there a set function where we do that? So we have a start revealed, okay. Where does a tile actually get revealed? So if we look at the tile class, this has some sort of like reveal function that causes the like pop-up animation that we like. But that's not here. This has core tile data. Where inside of the board were we setting start revealed? So we had some sort of start revealed. If it's in the visible tiles, we add it to a list of spawn revealed, which we go through the tile animation. So the tile animation component is a subcomponent of the tile which handles all of its animations, and it keeps track of whether or not it is revealed. So that's essentially what we're looking for. So where does this get set true? This gets set on reveal immediately and on reveal complete. Okay. So reveal complete, I would guess, is probably a function that gets called as part of the animation for it appearing. And then reveal immediately looks to be a function that we use as part of cutscenes in order to reveal the tile immediately, and then we animate the tile manually through the cutscene. So either way, this is setting it to revealed. Easiest path forward, I think, is to not have this thing be directly set, but to set up a public getter setter. So is revealed, and we can create a set function that will be m is revealed is equal to value, and we can do a get function that will return the m is revealed, and then everywhere that we are doing this call should now be replaced with the getter setter version. And that, what aren't you happy about? Oh, we already have an is revealed function inside of tile animation, which name conflicts with the getter and setter we're setting up. So in reality, this thing should also be replaced now. So I think we just remove this and it should mostly figure itself out. There will be a couple of errors. Okay. But I think that should be mostly fine. Yeah, that's all looking good. So when we open up Unity, we'll see a couple errors around the function we removed here, which now we just need to get rid of the brackets and it should work fine. Any more of those? I feel like there should be. No. Okay, that's everything cleaned up. So now inside of tile animation, when we set is revealed, we need to call back to the board, and we should probably let it know that we've revealed this tile. And it should increment the count of revealed tiles. We could also loop through all the tiles, like in this get revealed, and check to see if it is revealed or reveal in progress to get the count. This is currently used to save the information about the revealed tiles so that when we move between rooms, we keep track of that properly and we save and load. Okay, so then we kind of already do this, but I don't think I want to, for a UI element, constantly be checking this. And I would rather have it that each time we set the tile, it to revealed, we just increment. This has more room for bugs, but I feel like it'll be less constraining. It'll be more performant. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, thinking and coding. Have to get back into it again. Yeah, because it feels like anytime we set this value, if it's not already set, we set it to that value, and if that value is now true, we can increment it. And we never unreveal a tile currently, and this system would just need to be reworked if we decide to add that type of functionality. Which wouldn't even be that hard. It would just be, if not true, then decrement the counts. Wait, are we already doing all of this work? We are. Why do we already have a reveal count? This is slightly poorly named. So this isn't a reveal count. This is a revealing count. This is keeping track of tiles that are in progress of being revealed. This is mostly private, so I think we can just do reveal in progress count. Reveal in progress. No, this one's kind of alrightly named. Reveal complete. I think that's alright. This should be increment revealing in progress count. It's a bit more of a mouthful, but it's going to mean that it's not confusing with the kind of progress we're trying to create, or the new type of code we're trying to create. I misspelled in progress above. Okay, so that's fine. So then what we do need now is a true reveal count, which can be private, and then we can make another getter that can return this value and set this value. Okay, and then we can increment this value, set equal to value. And then inside of the tile animations, whenever we set this value to true, we could do just plus plus would be fine, I think. I don't think we would ever... I don't think we would ever do a setting revealing to false. Yeah, we only ever set it to true, and it defaults to false. Yeah, so this should never get called, but I'm going to add it just in case so that we're covering our bases. So this should give us a true count of the number of tiles that have been set to revealed. And if we get a total number of tiles, which should be a value that this has, when we do the load, we go through all the data and we add these. So if we just do the tiles dot we just do tile count and then tiles dot count should just be that value. And we don't already have that value defined somewhere in here. It does not look like it. Okay. So that should be the two pieces of information we need. With reveal count and the total tile count, we should be able to create a progress bar in the UI representing your progress towards revealing every tile. And then we should be able to do some sort of if reveal count equals tile count reward something. Okay. No errors. Good. Good first start. Now we need to modify the UI. So if we go into infinite retries, core front end sandbox, go 2D mode, and we take a look at some of these UI pieces. Under the front end, it's going to be under combat UI. I believe base has our current components in here for the status bar. So if we were to turn this one off for a second, yeah, some of it is disappearing, but not all of it. The clock display is separate from the screens itself. Interesting. Okay. Let's go into here. This has a bunch of copy and paste code that's a little bit all over the place, but that's fine. Why are these not underneath the base components? What does this have under it? Fascinating. Okay. So where does this UI live? Here. So there's an interact, and then there's kind of a prefab for the standard left, right. And that lives underneath the ability select, but combat base has most of our core HUD in it. So I think this would be the right spot for adding kind of a nameplate and room completion progress. Now, these are handled by unit data-driven components. We are going to need to populate this information based off of the board. I don't think we have any components for that yet. This is all under the JRPG. We want to go out of this folder structure and up into infinite retries. We have a tile, but we do not have data-driven components for board. Okay, so we're going to need to build that. So we will rename this a board data-driven parent component. Copy that name. And this will operate on data for the board itself. So we'll pass the board in, and then it will be able to get the information we need. Then we're going to need to make a new folder structure up here. Board components. If we take a look at, say, something that's name oriented, we don't need an icon right now. This display text one should be a good reference. So we'll grab that, copy that into here. Unity's going to think for a moment while it creates that file. Okay. We're going to call this board name component. And we're going to make another one, which is going to be board progress component. Completion progress component. Okay, now let's set these up. Should be relatively straightforward. This one here is going to operate on the board data. It doesn't know about the board, and that's because this thing is going to be needing using core. It's going to grab the text, and then it's going to get the stored data for the tile count. I did see a load count there for a second. Oh, that's for when it's loading everything at the beginning. That won't give us the information we need. Okay, just making sure we haven't recreated the same data twice. And then this, I think I want to be a percentage. So we're going to grab, let's make a float value, which is going to be the lerp amount. We're going to grab stored data. We're going to get the reveal count and divide that by the stored data for the tile count. And that should give us a value. We're going to need to cast these to floats in order for Unity to do this correctly. That should give us a percentage between the two, between 0 and 1. So if we times this value by 100, 0.0f, and then add that to a percent concatenation, that should give us, I believe, the value. We will want to do some string formatting on this and define the number of toString, and we're actually going to want to add the floating point values. Just like this. This thing I love about having like a fully built up project is you don't need to Google things. You just know that you have it somewhere else and you can just search it and then you find it and then you don't have to remember. Okay, so this will give us a percentage. I'm going to rename this class to board complete progress text component. And we're going to need to make another version of this. Again, Unity's thinking about making it. But this one will not be the text component. It will be... Is this the right one? Yeah, it has the one at the end, so it's the one that Unity created. This will be the bar component. And instead of turning this lerp into a string, this one is going to be a progress bar, so it's going to be an image, I do believe. And we should be able to look at an existing one, like the clock filled time remaining. Yeah, this is a good example. So we're going to create an image, which will be the fill object. It will need Unity UI as part of its includes in order to know what image is. And then our lerp amount will now be the amount of fill here. And now this component should be able to fill an image, aka a progress bar, based off of the amount of tiles that we've revealed. Okay, and last but not least, we need to update the name. So I think we will need some sort of anchor for this. And I think just having the name of either the room or specifically the zone that we're in could work well. Using core. Okay, and then in here we're gonna need the board to tell us the name. Do we have any such information? We can get information about the tiles. Interesting. Let's go back to the board. Let's pin it, because I think we're going to be using it a bit today. Although we might be almost done, honestly. Right, so then we have this tile data from level data, which comes in. Do we ever store this? We do not keep track of the tile data. This does not have a name associated with it. It is simply all the tile information. The floor texture is coming from something, right? Yeah, so the scene name, when we load based off a scene name, and that scene name gets used to determine which room we're going to load and what texture and everything. But we don't really have a concept of like metadata for a room. Level data is essentially the information about a room. It currently only keeps track of tile related stuff, but there's no reason this couldn't have a level name string associated with it. And then in here, I don't think we need to save the whole level data. That seems excessive. But I think the board could keep track of a string value for the level name. I guess technically it's more of a board name. But I like to think of these things as rooms, but that's not the naming convention I ended up keeping. Sure, we'll be consistent. So when we load the data, we will then, first thing we will do is set the level name to the level data dot level name. And then in here, we should be able to just do that. And if we come into the engine, we should be able to now see a level name value. For the sake of testing, I'm going to just like insert the value directly here. And I think I might just make all of them forest. So that it's just generically the name of the zone rather than each room having an individualized name. Okay. Cool. We've written all of the component data for this. Next, we need to make the actual UI. So we have some stuff here that we could probably copy. Let's copy the status bar as a base. This has a health bar set up correctly. We don't need this. We don't need... Let's move this up so we can actually see what we're modifying. We don't need these. Okay. So we want some amount of text. I don't think we need the word HP here, but we do want a progress bar that can fill. I think we could use something a little simpler. This green fill, I think we might just want the simple ones. I have a very basic one we use for the enemies. I don't know if that's in this folder. This is all pretty elaborate versions. We're looking for just a very simple little progress bar. So this is the frame. Oh, there. Got it. Okay, so we should be able to just reuse this thing here. Just a simple little image. And if we modify the fill amount from left to right, it will fill. Perfect. Hydrate redeemed on Twitch. Perfect. All right. Good call. So now we get to play the build something UI-wise that looks alright, but is mostly placeholder. Okay. Completion bar. Room completion text. This I don't think we need. I would like another image, but it can just be a basic one. What is this thing? Bar backer. Cool. Sounds great. We'll use that. So we'll drag this up, and we are going to replace this with the standard button, which I think might actually just be a JRPG asset. Let's open here. Let's look for button. No. Frame. No. Box. These things. We could do... We could do this flourishy one. Make it simple. Or we could do sliced, I guess. Fill center. This thing is set up weirdly. Yeah, some of this UI is a little weird. I need to go find another example of a better setup screen. What's this guy? Skill screen thing. I think that's what I want to steal. Let's take a look in here. How does this thing get set up? This thing has a random height and width, which matches the background. This thing is probably the same dimensions. It is. And then it just has some text in it. Okay, let's steal this. Let's go back into Combat Base. Let's put this in here. Let's fix all the scaling issues and then bring this up into this spot. Okay. I think this is what we want to make our foundational piece. So we're going to create an empty parent. This parent I think should be left aligned to the top. I think it should have its anchor points set up like this. No, 1 on the Y. Okay, perfect. And then we are going to give this 5 away, -5 down, which should be a reasonable distance from the border of the screen. Okay, and so this will now be called room info component. Then we will bring down the progress bar down into here. These are positioned oddly. Let's delete this. Let's copy this. Let's delete the name out of here. Let's change this background from box 01 to box 02, which should have less flare. We can bring this down as a subcomponent underneath here. And I want this to be a fair bit smaller, I think. If this one is at position 0, 0, I think I also want this to be 0, 1. Yeah, this is super awkwardly set up. Why are you anchored to the center? It has been a moment since I've done some Unity UI stuff. You're anchored here? Your parent anchor point is here. Oh, because you need to be top left aligned. Okay, there we go. So that's set up that way, and then this one here, we want to be set up on the bottom left, and then we want to do 0 here, and then we want to move in probably 5 pixels, it looks like. This is fine, we can do like that, and that's all perfectly aligned up. So this is, this becomes renamed to, title is perfectly fine. And then this can become progress. Cool. This is too large, so we want to scale this down. I think we want to have this be top left aligned as well, 0 and 1. And then we can scale it in quite a bit. And I'm trying to think how I would want this to look. I think I want it to be slightly off center, like so it doesn't go all the way to the end. Something like 100 width and 20 height seems reasonable. And then we bring the progress bar and the text down into here. The progress bar needs its frame, so we're going to need to have the room completion progress bar frame. And we will need to grab the frame element. Which should be top left aligned with a pivot point of 0. And then it looks like 3 pixels in. And then 3 pixels down. Then we can bring this in to a width of 94. It looks like should be about on point. Then we want to give some room for the text itself. So we can go down to 72. Then we can bring the text in. This text is huge. I assume that this can be reduced down to 80. And then we will right align this to the edge. There we go. Then we can set this on the right hand side. Perfect. We just need to bring this in 3 pixels to the left. This width doesn't need to be nearly as long. Somewhere around 22 looks fine. Let's turn off the gizmos. That'll help us be able to see what we're doing a little better. The progress bar needs to go underneath of the frame. It needs to be anchored to the top left. 0, 0, 1 pixel in should be fine, because 2 pixels. 3 is gonna be, no, still fine. Okay, 3 pixels. And then this needs to go top aligned -3. Nope. -2.5, really? Interesting. And then this only needs a height of... There's some odd scaling going on. I think that shouldn't need to be a 0.5 value, I don't think. That looks correct there. Interesting. Is this value, because it was copied, have a weird scale? It does not. Oh, it does have a height of 10. That's why. Yeah, it shouldn't be... It should be double its size, or its Y value. It shouldn't be off mounts. So that means this can be 2 and -2, and now that should align properly. Okay. And then I think we want to bring this frame down a little bit more to line up with the bottom of this text. And then the whole progress bar, like, backing can come up a bit. Probably 18. No, 17 looks a little better. Okay. I don't like this being right up against this edge, so we will bring the whole progress over to 4. We're just going to bring this in to match the children. 117. And then I think I might even just go maybe even like 104. It doesn't need to be perfect because this is really gray boxy, but I think that's close. I think I like that. Uh, then we need to actually work on setting up the data entry. So this room component is going to need the board data driven parent is going to need a board progress bar, a board text, and a board name component. The name will go into this value, the text piece will go into this value, and the fill image will be this one here. And lastly, we will actually need the screen to set this up for us. So in here, we have a couple of different components for the unit info. We're going to grab one of these and we're going to make a new one for board. That will need core to be used. And then this will be board component. That's why that looks wrong. Okay. And then in here somewhere, we're going to have a refresh. So whenever we call refresh on the screen, we will refresh all of the components. And on initialization, we will need to initialize the board component, and then we will need to update its data with board.instance. It's possible we should have like an intermediate data component so we don't have to pass the entire board class in here, but I probably is fine. Let's just get it functional and then we'll worry about optimizations a little bit later. Okay. So let's go back into Forest 2. Let's save all of this. And then let's go into this scene. So top left should be updated with the name Forest. It is not. We did have an error. That's because we never actually set up the reference. One last piece we missed. Combat. Base. Infinite retries version. Inside the screen, we created this new board component, but we didn't actually drag this into here. Perfect. Forest, 0%, 0.3. So if we move through this space, we should be able to fully reveal this room. In fact, we're going to go back to a previous room because this one doesn't have any enemies, and this should give us a better idea of when we reach 100. Okay, we are not giving enough room for a 3-digit percentage, but otherwise, that seems to work okay. Let's fix the percentage part. So this value here needs to be able to do that value correctly, which means I think this thing needs to be a little bit longer to accommodate that extra space requirement. We'll do that. We'll be consistent about the parent object. Not that it really matters that much, to be honest. And then this can be a little bit longer. Let's say 28 should be fine. I think this could be a little bit away from the edge. I'm realizing that this part and this part look wrong to me all of a sudden. Is this not stretching correctly? It is slicing. That is fill center. There's no odd scaling on any of this. I feel like the way that that's sliced is a bit odd. And I don't feel like it was doing that a moment ago. Don't know what AI navigation is doing here either. Okay, was this fine at 100? No, it was always a little chunky. These values shouldn't matter. Huh. Don't really want to modify box 02 in any way because it's used everywhere. This should be slicing properly. Weird. Okay. No, spacing is just a little bit off on this. Because I know that we had set this up to have a little bit of room on the end, and now that is completely broken. Oh, is this because we're editing it directly instead of editing it in the original scene with the correct canvas size? That's probably what's happening. So if we come back into here and then open it this way, now everything's set up correctly. So it's to do with some canvas hierarchy stuff. Regardless, this looks okay now. Okay, I think this bar might be a little long now, looking at it in this space, so we can bring this in a bit. And then if we have a smaller digit amount, this will probably still look okay. 10 is fine, 1 is fine. It looks a little odd because it's so far right aligned now, but we just need the space for the extra digits as they fill in. Good enough. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's go to Infinite Retries, Dungeon, Forest, Remo 1. And then let's switch up the music again for the background. Let's do... I want to hear more of Stranded. I was thinking that was going to work well for our forest. I want to hear that in the background again some more. Okay. So the update on this progress bar is a little bit off, so it's always updating the following turn, so it's always like a turn behind. So here I believe we should be at 100% now, but it wasn't until we stepped one more time that it actually updated. So the update is slightly off on that. But otherwise, I think that's okay. So that is a progress bar for how complete a specific room is. And if we end a run and then go back in, it's never going to update the UI properly here, I don't think. So we'd never see the top left change. But if we come back in here, this should still be 100%. 0% on load. And then on first update, 100%. Okay. The 0% on load is a little bit odd. So there's some timing issues and some more polish work on that. But I think that is kind of showing the idea of what we're moving towards, at least. This like idea that we are filling in the space. We are recapturing the world from the Demon Lord, and this is the percent of recovery for this specific room. We don't really have the concept of like the completion of an area. 76%. 11, okay. And the percentage will obviously change quite a bit based off of the number of tiles in a given room. So smaller spaces will obviously gain their percentage much more quickly as we fill them in, and larger room areas will take longer. Okay. So next question becomes, what happens when we fill the board 100%? There should be some sort of moment where we reward something. And this needs to be somewhat universal. We might want to reward different things, like a treasure chest, or you know, an item, or an enemy spawning. Like different things might have to happen here. So there's 2 points to this. Number one, how do we show that to the player? So we're probably going to need some sort of like design data, which again might have to go inside of the level data. Or once we have the data of what we're doing, we're going to need to actually execute on it. Yeah, okay. So, standardly, we use, like, abilities. Oh, are we not getting YouTube chat? We were not getting YouTube chat. Okay, fixed that problem. But we were not seeing YouTube's comments, which I apologize to Red Yoshi on that one. Okay. I think this needs to be an ability. Or a cutscene. Let's take a look at how the cutscene manager happens. Or how it operates. So it has the idea on scene load of checking for a specific flag for the boot one, and then loading a scriptable sequence asset, and then adding it to the response manager on the scene load. Okay, with a response type of intro. Interesting. Okay, so the cutscene manager is grabbing not abilities, but completed sequences to play. I think it's fair. I think it's fair to use something similar here. So I think when we complete a board, I think we should have the name of a sequence that we want to play. And we want to play that sequence, which will essentially be a little cutscene with something happening, and our sequences can manipulate the game in hundreds of ways. So the board doesn't need to know what's going to happen when it gets complete. We will just need a different cutscene for every room, which adds a fair amount of extra design work because now I have to make a cutscene for every room. But if it's as simple as something as like launching or creating a chest on a specific tile in that room, I should be able to duplicate that each time and just change the coordinates of where I want the chest to appear and the data inside of that chest. I'll obviously need to create some sort of like spawn chest sequence step as well, but that shouldn't be that big of a deal either. Okay, I think that seems reasonable. The next question I'm debating is whether or not the cutscene manager should be the one in charge of this. Like, I don't know if the board manager should really just be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna just like run up a sequence. I think it makes more sense if the cutscene manager has some sort of like run or so we have like an out of time and an on death, which takes an individual ID and then loads it. On end of turn load. Okay, so I think what we want to do then is we want to have something new here, which is external content load done. And then we want to make a new function in here, which is like run cutscene, which will take a string for the addressable ID of the cutscene we want to play, and we will use that ID, and then we will launch the maybe this becomes on run could this just be called run? That might make sense. Sure. And then the board will just need to hand off the ID of the specific addressable for that room. And again, for the time being, I think we can just put that directly in here. Whether or not we want to break out this into its own design data that's like in a spreadsheet somewhere, I could see a case for that, but for now, I think this is fine. Okay. As currently written, every time we load into a map that we've 100% completed, we would run this cutscene currently, which isn't what we're looking to do, I don't think. It might be, actually. The thing about this is if there's a treasure chest or something that we want to have spawn here, we might want to have that load every time you run, and maybe the chest is just empty if you've already looted it. We get into a bit of a design debate about like how rewards work. Like if say the chest has like a sword in it and we're doing a run, do I pick up that sword and it's permanently part of my character, or every time I do a run do I have to go back to that room and loot that chest every time? Interesting. Okay. Okay. I think I could see it either way. I'm going to assume for now I'm going to want to run the sequence every time. And then we will see what kind of problems that yields. Hello, Amorphous on the YouTube side. How's the stream been going? Pretty good. Pretty good. We are working towards getting a new meta system in place. We've gotten this kind of like name of the zone you're in. Right now it's just defaulted to forest. I don't know if we'll have like room A or room 2 or whatever based off each room you're in, but for now it just says forest here. And we have a progress meter that's representing how much of a room that you've fully explored. And then we're looking at setting up a cutscene that will activate when you have fully completed a room. Did that fail in any kind of magical way? Looks like it did. Yes, because there was a null reference on the cutscene manager. Okay, cool. So the code did work. We are running a string, but there's no string valid cutscene to play right now. Let's see if we can get something operating, some sort of indication. Let's look at cutscenes. We have one specific one for the Goddess Realm. We also have a boot test one that just transitions to a screen. We have some sort of example one here as well. What is this thing? Oh, was this the old... Yeah, okay. There was a system I was working on where I was trying to make the sequences work with like a node editor. That's what some of this test stuff is. All right, let's make a new folder. Let's make room forest room 00A. We want the exact same naming convention here, but instead of a... Okay, come on. Okay, we want to name it something like that. And then we want... Let's actually do it for room 1 to start. And then this is going to be a cutscene. Give it this addressable name. Okay. Then if we put this value inside of here for the level completion cutscene, that should allow this to run when we complete the room And because we haven't set it up to have any kind of flag to make sure it only plays once, it will play every time. So from there, let's simplify this down to something new. We could do a print. That would probably be the easiest thing to test here. Complete room, not from room 001. And now when we get 100% of the room created, we should see that print in the log. Okay, clear everything, turn everything back on. We spam a lot currently still. Walk up here. That should be 100%. Did we see that message? Is there not a way to search the logs? Why do I feel like I used to be able to search this? Oh, what did I just hit? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, not seeing a way to search. There it is. Okay. So that played. Let's do collapse. That should make this a little easier to spot as well. And so then if we end the run, and skip past this part, zoom in. Get through this dialogue, and when we load back into the scene again, we should see that print statement again. Yes, here. Okay, so we are playing that cutscene, and then if I keep stepping, we don't do it every time, right? No. Okay, so it's only each time we take a step within the first room, it looks like. That's partly to do with the typing we set the cutscene as. So come into here, and if we take our one step, it says cutscene complete. Okay. All right. Well, that's mostly working then. So we are now tracking how many tiles we've revealed, and we're tracking once we've revealed enough tiles, we will play a cutscene which can be different per room. And the cutscene could be anything. Right now it's just a print message. Let's see if we can set up a post-processing exposure step out of curiosity. We don't really do this through cutscenes. Normally we do this through a ability sequence step for shove specifically. So inside of shove, we punch the world. Where do we actually do the flash exposure. So we normally do a target exposure of 1 or -3, but we go to a target of 1 and then back to an intensity of 0. Okay. So 0 is our default. But what is the target of this effect? Entity ID is global volume. Okay. So if we're making a cutscene version of this, we should be able to just do, hey, global volume. Shouldn't need the quotations for this. Over 0.5 seconds on a, say, in sine waves, go to exposure 1, and then post-processing set exposure, say on an out sine wave, 0.5 seconds, go back to 0. These do not look to be blocking by default. We override that value? We do. If we want to use this in the cutscene, this needs to actually have the blocking be built in. So we need to grab this chunk of code and put that at the top so that it is exposed in a way that we can actually access it via overriding. And now we might do one more thing actually. Nope, that shows up. The extra thing I'm thinking of we should do, but it's just determining whether or not we are indenting on that list via some of these extra parameters. And now it moves in and out based off blocking. So if it's blocking, it'll hold, and we can leave both of these as blocking for now. With that being done, when we load into the space, we should see an exposure flash. When we take our first step. So we'll zoom in. We did not. Any errors? No errors. Oh, we haven't completed the room. Duh. I was thinking we were coming back from like the Goddess Realm where it was already pre-built, but because this is our first run, we actually have to walk through and reach 100%. Yeah, and she flashed ever so suddenly. Right, we're gonna have to go through the boot. I also want to rip the screen out because that's a huge part of this. There was a question of what we're trying to achieve here, and it's really this idea of just like getting rid of that end screen. We're going to try and get rid of the whole goddess power level up process stuff, and we're going to replace it with a couple of other things. Okay. Cool. So the timing's a bit off on a couple of aspects of this. We would like to have that cutscene happen immediately on revealing that final tile. I'm not sure if we have the response manager set up in a way that it can respond, because it's currently responding on end of turn. Which, how does that work? Yeah, so basically we have a step where when we finish up a turn, if the current turn is complete and we have an end of turn response, we change to the end of turn response combat state. So I think what's happening is we are not getting here fast enough. We are setting the... I'm going to add a couple of prints in here, but I'm going to guess that the order of these is going to be slightly off. And we're going to see that the run comes in after we've already set is turn complete. In order to make this easier, we're going to turn on the board debug spawn all. That might break our testing, but we'll see. It looks like it does. Okay, spawn all does not allow us to do this easily. We might want to make a map that's just in general smaller so it's easier to reveal everything, but this is not the end of the world. Didn't reveal those last two. Okay. Okay. So we should have seen some information here for all the reveals. There's his turn complete. Where is the call for the cutscene run? Not seeing it. So we take another step. Oh, we haven't revealed everything. Where is the final tile we're missing? So this is a fear that I have with this system. Is that it may yield to this type of dumb gameplay, which I do not like. Where it's like just looking for that last tile that you're missing. I think in order for that to not be awful, we're going to need to do some sort of like fog of war effect or edge of tile effect that lets you know where the edge is, or where you might be missing a tile. It's not a fun problem to solve right now, but that is something I think we will need at least some sort of effect for. Maybe it's some sort of like light, like grayish, like cloud particle that's over top of every possible tile. It could work well with the revealing and dissipating those cloud particles, but it might also get really performance intensive. Okay, so in here we see that we're doing on frame 19,730 cutscene run board, and yeah, the turn is already complete on frame 690. So that makes sense for a number of reasons, but primarily because the tiles animate up, which I wasn't accounting for. And so when the tile animates up and it reaches its full level, that's when we call this reveal, I believe. Yeah, when it is set to is revealed. And is revealed is set to true when the reveal is complete after we have finished doing the in progress animation for it. So it could be, depending on how long that animation is, it could be a long time after the reveal. Okay, so there's two different problems here, or two different solutions. When we go into a turn, so if we look at the unit turn combat state, we say, if my turn is complete, then we go into like end round and we do all this different stuff. If we're in next unit combat state, this like updates whoever's next to go. And then we go back to this state where we're waiting for them to take their turn, essentially. When we enter into this turn, if we go back and we look at current director, we care about the player director in this situation, I think, but it's probably going to involve both of them. But when we go into next, we actually open the combat ability select screen, which is how we do input to actually perform actions and to attack. So when we call next and then go here, the UI is already up and we're basically waiting for you to finish your turn. And turn is complete gets called. In the director, the player director, we check whether or not the turn is complete if that unit, the current unit, is turn complete, which is a component on the unit that just has like end turn true false. And we end this turn as part of an ability effect. So like when we're done with the player's turn, we say, hey, perform an ability that says I'm done. But we have no way of knowing when we're sitting inside of this state whether or not the player is performing an action, or if it's the AI's turn, whether or not a series of AI are doing stuff. And that's why we don't just immediately perform responses like cutscenes, because that cutscene could be affecting the state of the world. Like, you know, it's possible that when you complete a room, we might open a secret entrance or something. And if the tiles that were stood on need to be replaced or modified, or a chest falls in and the enemy is mid-movement or you're mid-attack, we don't really want to be modifying the world while things are in motion. It is, at its heart, a turn-based game, and so we want to try and respect who has control and not interrupt them until they finish doing whatever they're doing, and then we can say, okay, before we give up the next turn and say, hey, you get to go again, we're going to just like go into the sub state where we're going to just like do an end of turn response. So the problem is that when we reveal the final tiles, we end our turn several frames before, and we open up the ability selects, and we're basically just waiting for the player to push a button, and then the tile finishes revealing, and now it's like, oh, the board's complete. But it's not until we take our next turn that we resolve the end of turn effect for essentially the previous turn, thus playing the cutscene. There's a couple ways to solve this. Solution number one, we set up the system in here that if the turn is not complete, we can have some sort of like interrupting ability response. So if the player has not already made a selection and they're not already actively taking an action, which I think we should be able to tell inside of the player director. We actually can't, but we could track it. So when we perform an ability for the player, we could have something in here that says like the player's doing something. And we could say if the player is not doing something, we could take away their control and do an immediate response. However, if in the small amount of frames where my turn completed, but before we have finished with the tracking of the tile revealing, I hit the A button, we'd have to wait for that player's action to finish. Before we could play the room completion cutscene. So that's solution one. It's a bit convoluted, but we could set up some systems that say, hey, if you haven't taken your turn yet, then we can try and interrupt you, take control away, close the screen you're currently in, actually go in and like retroactively take control back, and then play the immediate response. Solution two is we try and find a way to make it so that this run cutscene happens before is turn complete. So it needs to happen 40 frames sooner. The simplest way would be to have it so that when we modify the reveal count here on is revealed is set immediately, not at the end of the at the end of the animation. The problem with this is if we just do that essentially and move the reveal complete to the top instead of at the bottom, I think there's a good chance we break other things. Because I think I think there's stuff that's like waiting on the reveal. Like if we are revealing or revealing in progress should be the same thing. Like, is there anywhere where we're doing is reveal vanishing? So if we reveal a tile and then walk off the screen and we set the reveal immediately, then this vanish could play while the reveal is still in progress. And then we're going to get really messy with the position of the tile and it's going to get all over the place. So we can't have reveal being set done right away, because there's other things that already expect it. So instead, I think we need a reveal started. I'm going to take this path because I think this solution's a little better than like ripping control away from the player. It just feels like potentially a lot of issues. And we're going to make the somewhat terrible decision that when a reveal is started, we increment the count instead of it being actually based off of the real value. Which I kind of hate. And then we have no way of reducing it, which is fine. We already said we probably don't need to reduce. So when a reveal is started, we do that. The problem is I think there's multiple ways of revealing. So this is doing a Reveal with no values. That's going to all lead into here. But there's like a reveal immediate that we saw as well. Where does that live? Here, which just sets the value directly. So we would need to do reveal started also in this spot. And so there's two different spots where it's happening, which is now separated and a bit confusing. It's bad code. Debatable. It's debatable whether it's bad code, but it just feels less clean. But it has to be this way because we want to try and have it happen as quickly as possible. So as soon as we start revealing that tile, we say, hey, tile's revealed. So now if we fully reveal this whole space, that happened immediately. I did not have to take a step. Let's zoom in again so that's a little clearer because I had that on like small mode. But we are walking, we're doing things, we're doing the steps. Okay. So, actually, I want to do that one more time. I want to see the logs, and I want to see the frame, the log data to make sure that, like, we visibly are seeing it happen immediately, but I want to make sure that that final completion cutscene being added is happening before the end of turn is complete. I think it would be impossible for it not to be, but when the flash happens, let's open up the log here. Is turn complete? Is here. This is the cutscene. Wait. There's his turn complete. This is getting responses. Cutscene complete. Where's the ad? What am I missing? Okay, I think this is turn complete, is after the cutscene plays. So this is a little misleading, but basically after the cutscene is over and we're finished processing the responses, it comes back in here again. So this is the first one. So there should be something before this here. That's where it is. It was much further up than I thought it would be. So on frame 3946, we are setting the cutscene manager run for the board is complete, and then almost a full 60 frames later, we finally call the turn is complete. Okay, so yeah, there's tons of time now for it to catch it before the turn is over, and then we get to respond. Yeah, this feels cleaner. We just add it before the turn is finally over. So there's a couple of caveats. Let's see what happens if we exit the space and then come back in. Does the flash happen as the tiles are flying in? No. They happen after the first movement, and that's because it's an end of turn type, so it's only going to happen at the end of a player's turn, and the player hasn't taken a turn until they step at least once. I think we want it to be a little more responsive than that. I think this response manager's ability typing shouldn't be a direct value, but should actually be a binary. so that you can have multiples of these ticked. So I could say that the reveal should be happening on intro or end of turn. I need to find another enum. This might take a second. How do we do binary stuff again? It's been a while since I've had to do this. Which one of these would have multiple inputs? Not inputs, apparently. Facing, operator, tile terrain types. And where does this get used? If it equals grass. This is not a great example because I'm not actually doing anywhere in code where I'm doing multiples. Okay, let's go back to the search, looking for tile types. Okay, does that get used somewhere that's interesting and helpful? Looking for a spot where I check or add 2 of these. No, that's still not what I'm looking for. I think it's an or symbol to make something 2 types. Actually, easier way to do this is seeing as we found some here, we know that this is the special tag we're looking for. So let's find all situations where we do that. It's only in 2 spots. Okay. So let's go back to cutscene manager. And we're going to take a look at the ability type response. We're going to make this a flag, which it doesn't know what that means, so we have to use system. There we go. And then it looks like these are shifting the bits. Equals 1 like that, and then equal. Is that right? It is not. Okay, that looks better. I think those are the same now. The only other difference is I need this to equal 0 just for consistency. So intro is 0. Movement is okay, and okay, so that should work. So now these things should still work the same way. I shouldn't have any errors just from making that into a flag enum. And that's fine. The last piece that I can't find any reference to in my project is how do we set something to be multiples? So we come in here, we do run, and we want to have this run happen in either of these spots. I think we do that. I think now that'll respond as being equal to end turn or intro. I think for now I'm going to hard code it. I was just looking to see if there was a way that I could pass this data in, but it gets a little tricky because this is a callback. I need to modify things a little bit, but I think this is okay. We'll just say that anytime we run a cutscene, it can happen in the intro or the end turn. That'll become a problem later. We'll deal with that when it becomes a problem. So now, if we fully reveal the space, we should still see it happen at the end of that turn. And then if we enter into a new one after we have loaded everything in, during the intro section, we should be able to see it flash as well. Whether or not we want it to do that is debatable. Okay, so that's a glow for fully revealing. We exit. We come back in, and we should see it do it again immediately. We do not. Okay. So now let's go take a look in here. We should have a response set up for get clear. If we put a breakpoint in here, we should be able to see what's going on. But we should have something queued. It's just a little interesting that it's not showing it as equal. It might be that this needs to be slightly different syntax. Again, I haven't worked with flags in a while, but I'm pretty positive this is how I want to set this up. Switch up the background music again. What do we want? Actually, it's been a while since we've had strategist. I feel like we're on a good path. Took us about 2 hours, but I think we're close to being able to have it so that we at least can have a system so that when a room is fully revealed, we can play a cutscene. That cutscene can do anything we want. It could reward something. It could spawn an enemy, because cutscenes can do whatever. We have full control to build more sequence steps. It's super flexible. And we can have each room have their own cutscene. The real problem will become the data entry side of this. That will become difficult. Okay, so now we have a response in. We have an ability response that is of the type end turn, which is the exposure. Okay, so it doesn't recognize it as coming in as both types. Interesting. Okay, so let's go back to where we set this in here. And I want to see what happens when we recreate it here. So that would have played out. We wouldn't have saw it because of load times. We're getting a response to unload the world. We're getting a response to reload in the world. This is how a lot of the system actually works, is response stuff. I don't... Okay, well, that's not great. I don't love that we're constantly updating that. Okay, come back out. Response to unload the world. Okay, now we're getting some movement responses, and we have one in the queue, which is the movement one to unload everything. There's nothing here for the intro. Okay, we have no responses right now, but that implies that we are... Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So we actually hit intro before we set the board count. Interesting. So we reveal the whole board as part of a sequence. And we've already checked for our intros before this is being hit. Yeah, that makes sense. I am curious where this one's coming from, which isn't always the easiest thing with my system. Let's take a look at the sequence steps. This thing has 20 sequence steps. It has a print at the top, which is transition manager, transition is complete. Okay. Who calls this? Combat intro state. Combat intro state. It is this one. Okay. Okay. So even though it didn't look like we were getting a response, or there wasn't any queued, we did insert some steps for the loading of the board. Here, reveal board, intro sequence step. Then we're doing some tint stuff, we're fading the sprite out. Yeah, so we're like having the character do its intro to walk in. This'll work, and I hate it. So after we do our initial intro cutscenes, we need to check for any more cutscenes that may have been generated. Because the first cutscene is generating the second. Okay. Yeah. I'm still not 100% sure the flag stuff is going to work, to be abundantly clear. But that now it might, at the very least. Just seeing the YouTube comment from Snapple saying that the thing that the game we're building looks dope. Thank you. I like to think so as well. Although some days I have my doubts. More so around getting it to fully complete, like, playable experience, but it's at least getting there. Flash? No flash. Okay, so it's still not playing the cutscene. Let's at least put the breakpoints back in again. We want to see, when are we adding this? Here. And we want to make sure inside of the ability response manager that we're checking for it. Okay. We're going to move this in here so it only hits this if there was a response found. So this is going to be the unload. This is going to be the reload. This is going to be the unload. Okay, now here we have a movement response type ability, which has 17 things, which is revealing the board. Okay. Cool. Interesting. So weirdly, that implies that the intro, I didn't actually need the extra thing because the movement one is actually spawning the first one. So it is still just a problem with the flags. Okay, so I didn't need this. All right, so this is gonna do a bunch of work. I'm sorry, what do you... We hit the exposure? How are we getting an exposure one being found when I never hit the cutscene to add it? Like, this breakpoint didn't get added. Okay. That implies we're not cleaning up the state properly. Yeah, this is only end of turn. Okay, so we're not using flags properly. I think there's a different issue where if you leave and walk in and out of the area, you're going to build up a series of cutscenes. But if we fix this bug with the flags, I think that'll become a non-issue. Flags, Unity. I don't even know what we're looking for here. We're trying to figure out how to add the multiple of them, which I do elsewhere via the Unity editor, but I'm not sure how to do it in script. Flag, enum, Unity, scripting. I think this is what we're missing. Instead of doing equals, we should be doing has flag. It's a little weird with the debugging. I'm still feeling like something's wrong with this, but because I feel like even here we should still see this same multiples, but from what I'm seeing slightly off camera, the OR value should be enough to see that it is multiple. It is both end of turn and intro. But that might just be a weirdness with the debugger. Sorry, processing. It's not a lot that I have to like go look up. Usually we can kind of figure out everything just from looking around our own project. Okay, so I think this should do it. And this should also do it. In order to be 100% sure, I think I am going to make a local value that is equal to this, just to see if that is also still showing as only 1, when this 100% should be 2. Because I think it might be debug problem, less of an actual issue. Okay, so then if... The only thing that's weird about this... Unity, flag, enum. I'm not sure whether or not the order matters here. So this is checking ability type of the response has the flag, and this thing here is the type we're checking against. No, that should work, because this is the value that should have 2 flags in it, and this will be a single flag. So it's checking if this thing, which has 2 flags, has either of these responses. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. Cool. Let's give all this a shot. We're going to break the debugger for now. We're also going to, I think, remove the extra intro one I added inside of the combat intro state, because I don't believe this should be necessary. Okay. just trying to figure out how to use flags. And then we get to move on to the next most exciting thing, which is experience points. But I think we're close on this. Step by step, we are solving it. Okay, room fully completed. Move to the exit. Walk out. We're going to go back. We're going to attach the debugger again. Going to go back into Unity. And walk out here. Has flag movement is movement, so that should still get in here fine. Type movement, perfect. Adding the response type. This says it's only end of turn, but it should be end of turn and intro. Again, it's showing it as only end of turn. And it's setting as only end of turn. And it never gets hit. And here it does. So yeah, the OR is just not working. It's not setting it as two values. This has flag should be fine. I think intro being 0 breaks things. Would be my next best guess. Let's give that a shot. I'm not sure if that's going to break other things by adding a none to the front. I don't think we hard set any of those types. Oh, we might in some spots. Sometimes Unity and changing or modifying and adding enums can be a bit silly. Oh, not seeing anything now. Okay, let's add the debugger. We did not see the flash. All right. Good. Revealing all of this section. Oh, we never fully revealed the previous one. Was that the same problem last time, I wonder? Yeah, we're at 99. We missed something. Yeah, this is... Okay, so this is why we prototype things. I really don't like this experience. This, like... There it was. Okay, now it's intro and end of turn. So yeah, it didn't like intro being set to 0, which... I guess makes sense. Yeah, fine. It's probably a rookie mistake, but I just don't work with flags a lot. So it's not going to work here. We didn't get to see it happen. Interesting. We are not seeing a... We're not seeing it because we're not seeing an end of turn effect. Right now this is only happening run responses on movement. But there should be somewhere else where we do end of turn. Here. Why are we not hitting that one? Oh, is that going to kind of be because it's using an equal sign? It is. This needs to be has flag instead. All right. We should double check to see if there's anywhere else this is being used with an equal sign. Setting, but yeah, nowhere else that we're doing equivalency, I guess technically I should say. All right, this should work now. So I'm going to just take off the debugger and let's see if the flash happens. Should be on intro. Okay, we're walking through the space. We are revealing all the tiles. Oh, we hit 100%. I did not see the cutscene play. No, no, that was the wrong one. Okay. Attach. Editor. Check if we have an end of turn responses. We have 0 responses. Okay. Did it just play out really quick and I missed it? Okay, coming in, we're going to hit the ability response for movement. We're going to add an ability response for intro and end turn. Okay, that's good. We're setting its type to be 2. Got it. But we never hit... excuse me? So we set up the ability, but we never got in here to get clear? We have this one here. Checking for movement. Checking for an end of turn. It should come back as true. It does. Still true. Okay, adding the response types. So it did trigger it on end of turn. So if we were to break the debugger and then just watch that happen, or honestly I could... No, I'll just stop it. And then if we walk out and come back in again, we should see it flash when we move, but we still didn't see it happen on intro. Okay, yeah, so that happens on move. Okay. So then if we add this back, where... Intro on intro checks. Or more accurately, would be to put the breakpoint in here. Okay, going back. This will be the unload, which is fine. We're loading up. This should be the movement check, which it should find some. It's a bunch of them. Ability responses to remove. Okay. It's going to remove those, and it's going to add these steps. So it's adding all of these steps. Okay, so there's a bunch more added in between. Oh, but we don't execute on them. Well, I see the problem. So we haven't actually run the sequence. We're just like adding all the movements ones here. And the movement, so we're still the same problem. Okay. 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 Bumped the desk with my chair. That's what the loud noise was. I did not angrily smack the desk. Just bumped things. Readjusting, because now I know what the problem is. The problem is, how do we solve it? The problem becomes, how do we solve this? Okay, so when we do get movement, we add all 17 steps to that, and we add a reveal board step. This step will reveal all of the board stuff. As part of the board being revealed, we will then add a cutscene that we'd like to play, which we want to run on the intro. But we will not run this here until we come down here and we call start. So at this line here where we're about to get to, there is nothing added that is of type intro. So therefore, like, we can't get it. Okay. Unlockable characters with the hydrate, which is probably a good call. Okay. Oh no, it's a stretch. All right. Fine. Also probably a good call. We're going to raise the desk up. All right. I want this a little higher. We're going to do something really dumb. We're going to do something really dumb. Once we finish running these sequences, and we get any other intros that we want, so any other existing intros we'll play before this, we will then have our final step being to make another sequence list where we check for any more intros, and then finally we play this action and we start that sequence. Sequences within sequences. Here we go. Room flashed, exiting into this room, going back, and room flash. Okay. Okay, that is functional. Don't love it, but I don't hate it. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. I think that's pretty good. Yeah. This doesn't really show much at this point because I haven't added a ton of data to it. But the idea here would be that if I wanted to, I could have like more happen when we complete a room. We can give you more rewards, and those rewards could be anything. I do think we do want to play this sequence every time we enter this room. Or we want this sequence to do something that changes the state of this room such that it is going to remember what has been loaded into it. So if we spawn a chest, we might want to permanently save in this room that that chest had spawned, or that an enemy was supposed to spawn here. And so we maybe don't want to play this cutscene every time, but we might want to keep track of when things are done. But for now, I think this is a perfectly reasonable first step. I just really wanted to have it functional so that when we exit a space and we come into that space again, it will replay this cutscene on the right here, this thing, every single time. Okay. Perfect. This room is 100%ed. Now, one thing I don't love is that this feels a little sluggish because I can't push forward until the flash is over. Not the biggest deal. I guess technically we could remove this one from being blocking and that'll save a little bit of time. So it'll flash and the flash up will be blocking and you won't be able to push anything, but while it's going back down, you'll still be able to move. But otherwise, I think that is a system in place such that we can reward you based off of the amount of progress you, or reward you once you have completed 100% of a room. So if we hold here, we should see the character move even as it's doing the flash down. Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's take a moment. So, this replaces the idea of giving you rewards based off tiles revealed. So this screen here, where we were giving you experience points for the tiles revealed, will now instead be based off of this new system, which will be fully revealing a room, will give you some sort of reward. There's also interesting things we can do. There's interesting things we can do with this idea because it's so flexible, because the reward doesn't even have to be necessarily skill points. It could be anything. And me and Drixie haven't quite figured out what all of those like potentials are, but it's a flexible system that we could do a lot with. I'm happy with that. I think that that is a reasonable direction to go in. Whether or not this will be better than this end of screen that I'm trying to rip out is going to be determined a little bit based off of feedback from players when we get to the full demo. But I think that I like this more than the end of screen. So, next problem to solve. I would like to have it so that the defeating an enemy is not giving you a reward for that like experience tally. So like defeating an enemy right now is on this screen as like, hey, you get some experience that levels up your skill points, and you get more permanent skill points for the more enemies you've defeated, essentially. So every time you do a run, you're progressively increasing this bar, which will give you more skill points. As I said at the top of the stream, I don't love that idea because it just feels like there's not any real indication of any reward until you complete an entire run. And then all of a sudden this screen comes up that says, hey, here's a good job on all the things you did. And it's not always clear that you were even getting this value. And then oftentimes it just felt like when I was playing this, I just wanted to skip the screen as quick as possible to just get on with buying my rewards. So I want to make it so that instead, defeating enemies immediately gives you some sort of experience or progression, so that you don't have to wait until the end of a run to see that. This is the Era of Ember system. And this Era of Ember system had this idea that each skill could have skill points associated with that skill system. And what we spent a fair amount of time doing was changing it so that the skill points were actually universal for each of these abilities in the progression system we were just showing, where you gain skill points for just the goddess, and all of these would have a shared pool of skill points. I think that this was a bad idea. I think that my first instinct, which was to have it so that each skill could be leveled independently for Era of Embers, and then going like that idea in that first kind of game idea, the idea of each skill having its own set of skill points and its own progression and leveling up was meant for Era of Embers. And when we went to infinite retries, I wanted to switch it up and do something more simple. But I think that I should have went with my first gut instinct, because this feels more interesting to me, especially for a solo individual character. In Era, this was going to be in a game where you had 8 or so different characters that were all gaining their own individual skills, and I think it was an overwhelming amount of progression. But for infinite retries, because we only have one character, there is less of a progress system It's mad because it's trying to do a... Yeah. It's trying to run a cutscene for the Goddess Realm. That's expected and fine. Okay. I think because we only have a single character, having each of the skills actually have their own progression meter solves a problem. I think that having a single character gain experience can be fine, and that one character level up could be okay. But I've been playing a fair amount of like Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics lately, and one thing I'm noticing in a lot of those games, especially Fire Emblem, is this idea of like trying to choose who gets experience. And that mini game is often more important to me personally than actually completing a battle. It's like not about winning as fast as possible, it's about trying to level up the units I want to level up more. It's more about trying to level up specific units in a game than it is about winning that battle effectively. And I think that meta game of choosing how you want to gain an experience at the detriment of winning more quickly is a fun player choice that I would like to try and replicate in this experience. But because we only have a single character, there's not really a way to pick and choose which character gains experience in the same way as something like Fire Emblem. Therefore, going back to the each skill has its own progression allows us to replicate that type of experience with a solo character. So now we can have the same type of decision-making process of, oh, do I attack with my ability that is the most powerful and the most leveled up, or do I hit with a lower powered ability to get experience on that one so I can gain more stats and make more progress on that ability's specific skill tree? Do I want to hit slash over and over again? Or do I want to do the combo so I can kill this enemy fast because I'm trying to get to the next checkpoint in the game? It becomes about players' decisions and players' choices about whether or not they want to work on their meta progression through their skill trees or whether or not they want to work on the progression through the environment and the world. There is a concept in game development that I've run into time and time again where designers tend to like new and shiny toys. There is this thing I've seen where a designer will play a new game and go, this game does this thing I really like, I should try and slam that into my video game. I should try and find a way to take this really cool new toy I just found and put it into my creative thing. And oftentimes you want to augment and make it your own and try and expand on it and do cool things with it because designers like designing things. But there is this very, not bad, but thing you need, this habit you need to be cautious of. And so I make this call and this justification, and then I add this clarification to the end that just because I've been playing a lot of Fire Emblem and I like the way their experience works, I still want to try and be very quantifiable about, like, am I liking this because it could make the game better? Or am I liking this because it's the new fun thing that I've recently discovered and I'd like to try and do the same thing because I think it would be neat to have the same mechanic that I enjoy in a different game? I'm rambling a bit. Summarize my point. If you have a cool new idea that you think would be really neat that you've discovered from something you've been playing recently, you should really take a hard look and decide whether or not it's just because it's the new fun toy, or is it actually going to be effective and improve the overall play experience of your game. Okay. I've said my piece. Deep in a video that is 2.5 hours long. But my point is, I'm just thinking about VODs, but my point is that I still think, even with that caution, that this is a good idea. because again, the amount of diversity and as Morphus is saying in YouTube, the decision making that this will yield, I think will be really interesting. And that's not, I haven't even talked about the fact that once you max out a skill tree for an ability, that ability will be at its strongest, but will no longer yield experience and will no longer get any better. And so it would make sense to swap out to the next ability and retire that one and try and go to an ability that has more experience that it can gain and more skill points that it can unlock to increase your character's overall stats. But you will be marketably making yourself worse when you swap out to a new ability opposed to one that you fully leveled up. And I think there's, again, something that's there is an annoyance for players in that, but I think overall it will be interesting. Okay. Ooh, unlockable characters with info I may not have. Later Fire Emblems also had a bonus experience buildup that you could choose who to give to. Level up from bonus experience, guaranteed exactly 3 stat ups, which could be good or bad. Okay. I think that is maybe the same kind of concept I was going to get into, that if the maxing ability of like having an ability that's fully maxed out is too much of a player, like if we get feedback from playtests that like, oh, it really sucks that the coolest ability I've leveled up all the way is no longer useful, we could have something like an XP share or something where a fully leveled up ability, when you use it, gives a little bit of XP to all your other currently equipped abilities. There's ways of resolving that, I think. Okay. TED Talk over. Let's implement it. So, first off, let's take a look at the current ability spec class that we have for infinite retries, because we did rip out a lot of this concept. Okay, it still has the concept of skill points attached to it, so we had not fully ripped out this entire system yet. I think this should be relatively easy to hook back up. So we had this concept of nodes, we could gain skill ups. In fact, is it already working how I want? Because each of these are set to 100. Did we never actually hook the progression system directly in? I guess we didn't get to that step, which is kind of lucky for me that like I had a bit of a break to kind of think about this and realize I don't like the way this is working, and to play some Fire Emblem in between a little bit as well, and some tactics, and just like realize that there's a problem here. So if we get the progress state, this thing has a progress experience and a progress level. Does this not have, where are the skill points stored? Because we have some concept of like leveling up and gaining skill points. Yeah, so we incremented this as part of the level up, and we had a component for displaying this at the end of run screen, but we never actually hooked it into the ability skill screen stuff. We just didn't get to it. So the ability specs are still hooked up the way they were originally intended for Era of Ember, where each skill has its own skill points. Let's go back to the ability spec. Control tab is what I'm doing there, by the way, to be able to go backwards through tabs in that way. Okay, so here, this thing has an experience. That does not get used anywhere. We have a grant experience function, which check for skill ups. This has some formulation to determine based off skill points gained times some amount. So there's some formula here that I might want to change. And then we check for skill ups again. We loop into itself. And then what do we do with this check for skill ups? We don't know. Okay. And then we have a temp purchase, which uses them. Okay, this is not too bad, actually. So let's go take a look at Era of Ember's ability specs. So Era of Ember had a similar system, but it was based off of the moment that you ended a battle, I believe. was how I was granting that experience. So let's take a look at how that was being used. It had one reference, which is in the battle complete state, in which the idea was we would award experience, we would go through all of the units, we would go through all of those units' equipped, unlocked specs, and we would grant them experience of an amount of however much we were trying to award, which was based off the victory results experience, which would come from each enemy giving a certain amount of XP that would be compiled into a larger number. So depending on the enemies you had, Era of Embers was more of a traditional, like Final Fantasy VI type, like bunch of monsters, you fight them, once you defeat them all, the battle ends, you get a reward screen. And so we would tally up all that experience for every monster, and then we would apply it to every single ability equally. Okay. So I think what we want to do for us is whenever you perform an ability, we want to give that ability experience, at least to start. Maybe we'll add some sort of experience share or some way of like building up bonus XP that we can spend in some way. We'll look at that at a later point. But for now, base level functionality, when we perform an attack, we should get a little bit of XP on that ability. Other aspect of this is if we go back into the UI, we will want to represent the progression of that skill's experience in some way. Now, if we look at something like Fire Emblem as an example, or Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics, you would normally see it that when you perform the action, you would see a little bit of experience fly off of the character's head after that was over. We can still do that, but it's in that situation, it feels like the experience is tied to that character, not to the ability. And so one of the more important things for me is going to be setting it up so that there is a similar progress bar to the one we just created on each ability in the bottom right. Is that going to look muddy? Yes, probably, most likely. But I want to try it and we'll see how it goes. So inside of here, we're going to take a look at the ability select screen, and we're going to go into the input center, this thing. And this thing has an icon and a command, which is a piece of text. What is this? This is a ability info data-driven parent. So what is an ability info? Ability info has information about the unit and the ability. So which unit has this ability and the ability itself. Does the ability have its spec associated with it? Can we get access to the current level and the amount of experience that it has? This is taking too long to scroll. Ability spec. It does not. The ability does not have an ability spec associated with it. If we look at an existing ability, we're going to want to go into here and we take a look at shove. This is the ability. Is the ability spec a component? It has an ability type. No. It is not a sub piece of it in any way. Okay. We did have an ability specs class, but I think that got added to the unit directly. So if we look here, ability specs. Yeah, this was a way of getting access to those unlocked abilities. Okay, so we need to find a way that given a ability info, which is the ability and a unit associated with that ability, we need to find an ability spec. And an ability spec is more of like the metadata about that ability. It's like the level, the experience, and the other information that we actually care about displaying on the UI right now. We could do a match, so we could check based off of this ability what is this ability's design info? Because I do think we have some sort of design data associated with each of these. This is too large. That's my problem. Perhaps not. Is that what this thing is doing? It is. So the ability to display info contains the design data associated with it. Is that being set? It's being set on initialize. And it does not look like that gets set up correctly for infinite retries. The unit adds the ability specs. It adds the abilities. Okay. I'm somewhat surprised that we do not associate any design data with an ability. I think that's because it's all kind of hard-coded. As we've been building very quickly in infinite retries, we did not build design data for everything. We did create design data for the skill screen to work correctly, but I don't think the individual abilities that we actually perform know about any of that. So like when we look at, okay, let's go back. If we go back to the actual prefab we were looking at, in here, we look at this ability info. This has a name piece, which it's getting from the abilities ability design data info get name. But for right now, we've been hard coding that directly. Via this default. Okay. So there's a bit of like hackery that we've done that we need to get rid of this default display info and actually properly set up abilities, I think. I still feel like I'm missing something though. I feel like the work we did around getting the equipping operational must have some level of communication. So if we go back into here, we have some sort of system where we are loaded abilities. This is a list of abilities that are loaded, and these are from spawn an ability, which comes from the ability specs. Okay. And this has the design data here for which prefab to load. And then this calls the spawnability function, which from the object that just got loaded, we add that to the loaded abilities list, and then we initialize the container or the player state beta with that list of abilities. So the abilities are coming from the ability spec, but we don't pass along the data or the spec that it was related to. So this is where, if you think about it like a bunch of running cables, this is where there's a missing connection. We need to connect the dots here. We need to connect these pieces of information. This is how we do that. Instead of directly calling to a separate function, we're going to make a lambda, which is essentially just a thing like this, and it is going to be a in place function, which would allow us to do all the same logic here directly inside of this function. But the nice thing about this is it will have the scope of this for loop, which this function down here will not. So in here, and in fact, if we want to keep things a little bit clean, we could still do this where we pass object through and still use the existing function without having to copy and paste everything up here. But we could also include the associated ability spec as a parameter, or the design data, or both. For now, I mostly care about the ability spec, so we will pass that through here, like so. And now that we have the ability spec at this level, we can get the ability. Instead of directly adding that, we are going to instead make a local version. We are still going to add it here, but we can now add to that ability the ability spec as a reference. I don't love this as a way of connecting the dots. I think that there's probably a cleaner way of like abstracting or separating this. Oh, this is why this doesn't work. This is why this doesn't work. Okay, the ability doesn't know about ability spec because ability is part of the core system. It's not part of infinite retries. Okay, so we can't directly add a reference to ability spec to the ability. We can instead do the design data. So we can add the design data and then the ability. Okay. Now we have to go back and figure out where the heck were we doing the construction of. Okay, easiest way is to go back all the way to here. So this was doing get name from the display info, and this was grabbing this value, which gets set on only initialization, and initialization is currently only called from inside of here, inside of the combat unit factory, inside of Era of Embers. So we need to do the same thing for the ability. So inside of here, because this is effectively the same kind of idea for our new game project, we can do, no, sorry, player, not AI. We should be able to still do a game object get display info and then initialize that with some data. The problem is we don't have the data here. So I guess we have to do it up above. So grab the same object, get the display data, and pass the design data in and initialize it here. I don't, this is way worse. Because now we've separated the initialization of an ability into the dungeon player manager as well as partly in the player state. I mean, this is kind of part of spawning an ability, is setting the ability up correctly, so I can see a situation where this makes sense. Yeah, okay. It feels wrong, but I think this is okay. Now, next piece. We've been playing the Fallen background music for a little bit, which I do like this piece. This is a good news piece. But we're going to switch up. Let's see what else we got. Anything else new? Sanctum. Let's see how this goes. Okay. So this has a ability default display info. Can I add an ability info component? Display info? So it does not have one of these yet. Okay. Then how does this work? Inside of here, it's doing ability display info, which is a part of this, where it tries to get the display info. Is this getting created somewhere? This is a mono behavior, so something needs to be attaching this component. This is where we just modified it. I'm sufficiently confused. So, in here, when we display the name in the bottom right part of the game, we are grabbing it from the ability info, which it says should be doing if null, get the component, and then return the component. If it's not found, this will be null, and it will not have any information associated with it. But if we look at it, like shove, for example, shove has a ability default info. Okay. This still doesn't explain how this guy gets added to the ability. Okay, let's hit play in the game. Let's go back to the dungeon scene. And let's run the game and see if we look at a game, an ability at runtime, does it have an ability display info on it? Oh, I guess the problem with the way the game is built now is we have to do the things, and then because of the other stuff in here, we have to skip the cutscene. I feel like we need some sort of like, this is my current flags, my set flags, so that we can like have like a debug, like, oh, I want to set intro to true so that I don't run into it again. Oh, it's okay. Well, this is the problem with the time skip. I can play too many sound effects at once right now. Okay, what we'll do, save myself some effort. We're going to come in here. We're going to disable the creation of the intro cutscene for now. Again, I think that there needs to be some sort of like default flag setting asset that I'm going to need at some point. For now, though, this is fine. We are going to go directly to the Goddess Realm, and then we will equip our associated abilities. Okay. We will equip all three of these. And now when we load in, we should actually have some abilities we can look at. Okay, choose the first checkpoint. Right, the game broke because it, okay. Move fast, break things is not always the best. We're going to add a completion of that little glow to every single one of these rooms for now. And they will each get their own custom completion when I design that. But let's not have the game break every time we complete a room. Okay, equip, equip, equip. All right, now from here we should be able to look up shove. There's the shove clone. So that's the created ability, which has a default ability of info. Oh, it does have an ability info. Did I just miss it? Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Whatever. Okay. So that being the case, back on track. So embarrassing. All right. Here. We will know now that there will be an ability info associated with this, and we can initialize it with the correct design data info. Now this hinges on the idea that the ability spec also has that same design data info associated with it. It does. It has the ability ID, which is the thing we care about. Okay. So now we should eventually be able to remove that default ability info. But it should find it here and then not use the default one anymore. So we don't need to delete it. This seems like it could be replaced with this. Inaccessible due to protection values. Oh, this is a private value. Ah, I see. We should just be doing get name. Wait, this is setting it? Oh, this is a weird function, actually. Remnants of an old system. I see. I see. This is fine. This shouldn't interfere. Anyways, point is that we, with the ability to design data ID actually being set, we should find the correct one in our data, and it should return that design data correctly as well. Now, this class basically encapsulates all of that design data so that we don't need to do anything with it. Is this part of... This is part of the JRPG. It is not part of Era of Embers. So this is some stuff that should have been moved over to Core but did not get moved. Oh no, sorry. This is part of Core. This is part of Core. Okay, so that's fine. So I would like to add a new function in here, which should be just... It's funny. I feel like this is kind of like a I don't care about you class and I would like to just circumvent you. But we're going to add a get design data ID, which from this anything could actually just access the design data directly instead of having to go through this class. But this class is mostly in place in case there's any like ability effects or anything below that we care about. Yeah, this doesn't just contact the ability design data. Okay, so with this function, I think we are set up to finally build the UI. Man, this was the much harder connection of the dots than I thought it would be. But it kind of highlights some still broken aspects of the ability system at like a core level. I think that this should be enough though. So if we just initialize with proper design data IDs inside of this class should be accessible from the ability itself. In fact, I believe the ability has a direct reference to it in here where it will try and get access to it, and it is used in a lot of spots. And then from here, we should be able to get the ability specs associated with that unit and then find the matching ability spec with that ID. In fact, let's write that function real quick just to make sure I'm not too crazy before I do all of the code parts. So this gets all the listed ones, but I think we might want a specific ability spec. Get ability spec, and we have to give it a integer, I believe, for the design data. And then we are going to go through all of the ability specs in the unlocked abilities. And then if that ability spec design data is it just not accessible? I definitely looked. It has the ID. Ability ID. Yeah, okay, it's named slightly differently. Ability ID is equal to design data ID, which is the same thing, just weirdly named. Then we would return this ability spec. Return ability spec. Otherwise, we would return null. There shouldn't be a possibility for this to return null, but we'll build it as if it's possible. So from here, I think we might want to actually write the function inside of here. Because the whole point of the ability display info class is to essentially distribute information about an ability to the UI. So I think what we actually want to do is write a function for each thing. So in this case, we're trying to get the experience, get experience. Which we don't already have something named that, it doesn't look like. And this is going to need to do a little bit of magic. This can't do it. Because core doesn't know about ability spec, and this is a core class. Yeah, okay. Fine. This is going on my list of annoyances that I'm going to spend a couple of days thinking about, because I think there's something fundamentally wrong here, but we're going to get it working first, because this is how I work through problems. I need to get it functional and actually working in engine. Then once all the lines are all connected, everything is actually doing what I want it to do, then I can go, well, how can I untangle this a bit? How can we clean this up? How can we do some cable management, if you want to think about it that way? Okay, so we're going to come in here. We're going to do it directly inside of this class, which I bet you this is also part of... Yeah, this is part of the JRPG. So this needs to be moved to infinite retries at some point. But for now, we're going to just add it directly here. So this is going to grab the ability info. It is then going to do the same thing we just did for the progress bar, that which was a while ago. We are looking for this information. We're going to want a progress bar, and that progress bar is going to want to update based off of some fill amount. Okay. So from the stored data, we're going to grab the ability get design data. We're going to get the ability and then get the ability info. And then from that, we're going to get the design data ID. No. What am I missing? Right, we were going to rework it and we deleted that. Because I got very excited about how this should be set up. And I'm not wrong about my excitement, but for the time being, we need the original version. Okay, so we need this get design ID. Bring this up a level. And then from that design ID, we're going to need to do a stored data, get access to the unit, and then from the unit get access to the ability specs. Does the unit not have a direct reference to the ability spec? Does not. Right, because the unit wouldn't be able to get access to that because it's part of core. Okay. Oh, what did I hit? Oh, I hit like build. No, stop. Stop. Okay. So that means that... Oh, this is frustrating. So then we have to get the component ability specs. Okay, and then from here, we can get the specific ability spec we're looking for based off of a design data ID. So this gets slammed inside of here. And this will give us a specific ability spec. So now we go from ability specs to ability spec. Okay, and then from this, we can finally get access to the experience. So, experience. And then, do we know what the next value is going to be? We must, right? We'll have to write this. So it looks like this is the formula for the amount of experience. This will be modified at some point, but for now... And this value is based off this. Perfect. More brackets. Perfect. And then we can also just replace this here. And then this isn't needed in this spot. And because that's public, we can now modify it here. These are integers, so we will need to cast them to floats in order for the lerp to work properly. Okay. That took like 45 minutes. So we can now, given an ability info, gain access to the ability specs from the unit, get access to the ability design data ID from the ability itself that we're looking at, and then we can use the ability specs and that design data ID to find the specific ability spec associated with this ability, and then we can get its experience and its required experience in order to fill a progress bar on the UI. Moving on. No further questions. Well, that's not... What did I just hit? Oh my god. What did I just hit? Oh my god, what did I build? I hit this build button instead of the scenes button. Okay. I think I hit build windows or build windows addressable. Regardless, I don't... Oh my god, look at all those errors. Yeah, build failed. Cool, good. I have not used the build system in a while. I was not expecting it to work. Mostly because I didn't intend to hit it. Let's go back to here. There's no small percentage that we may have just broken everything and we may not be able to run the engine until I do some maintenance. I might want to just remove this for the time being as well, so we don't accidentally do that in the future. In fact, let's see whether or not the game is broken. I would hope that that would have just tried to try and do its thing and then just failed. But let's see what happens when we run it. We seem fine. We seem fine. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, everything's okay. Okay. Adventure averted. Let's go to the front end and let's modify these objects down here, which is going to be under combat UI, combat screens, ability, components, unit data, these things. Now we can come into here and we can add a new object. We're going to need a couple of these actually. So once again, we're going to use, oh, we don't want this one. We want the, in fact, maybe we actually just find this thing, because that's what we want. Okay. This is south, so this is going to be the A button. This is trying to be driven by some stuff. We're going to add an ignore layout element, and we're going to ignore layout so I can move it around how I feel. We're going to drag this down here. We're going to expand it all the way out to there. Say 76. I want to see this in place, because we saw earlier that the UI doesn't always react properly unless you're looking at it underneath the proper canvas. Okay, that looks right. Don't need any text on this one. Okay. So we have a bar and we have a fill bar. This is anchored top left of this. So I think this should actually be bottom left would be better. 0. We could go 3, 4. And then maybe we actually bring this in a little bit. I like maybe 64. And then this becomes 62, I think. Because I think we need some sort of like level indicator as well on this. We're going to need some sort of circle. So maybe we grab this icon. We're not going to have a lot of space though. These are quite small values. We bring this in here. We add the letter 1, or the number 1. Wow. Where does this other one come from? Whoa. Why is it generating 2 of these? That's an odd bug. That's super weird. Okay, so this is basically the minimum font size that we can do. Seriously, why is it making an extra 1? Okay, regardless, we can't really do much smaller than this. So even if we make a little circle for this to sit in, it's going to have to be pretty large in order to encompass that text. How big is this triangle? This is 20 by 21. That's probably pretty small. What if we use that? Blue triangle. Set to natural size. Oh, it's actually bigger. We need something tinier. We need a tinier object. Ooh, the action points? Those are 7 by 7. That's going to be too small. Let's give that a shot. Yeah. I mean, it's actually the right size for the current bar shape. If we were to try and put a number in there, though, it's not going to work. Okay. What about the outer ring? Again, too small. 7 by 7. Okay, we're going to need something custom. Let's bring this up. Let's do a sprite. Let's bring this in here as a new object. I think we're going to need to half the size of this. Yeah. So we're going to do sprite size. We're going to do 50%. We can try and clean it up, but I don't think this looks good. Save as. No, that's going to still be too small. Okay. Well, let's split the difference then. What if we made this thing, say, 14 pixels? By 14 pixels? It didn't like that. Okay, let's let it keep its size. Still got a little wonky, but... Oh, it got a lot wonky. Might just be easier to rebuild it by hand. We'll just make it like this. Let's just get the base shape, and then we will re-add the other pieces later. Okay, I think like that. And then we'll grab this color. Let's give that a shot. How does that compare? Is that still too small? And if we actually bring the text forward, that feels a little big still. I wonder if we could just do something like that. It's closer. It's a weird shape to it, but Just trying stuff. I feel like I must not have hit set natural size when I went to 20. That's only a letter 1 or letter. Oh, wow. Okay. Streaming for 3.5 hours. It's only a number 1, so if we do center align on this and we make this the size of the icon frame, we'll do fixed stretch to size so that it perfectly sits inside. Why are you... We don't need these pieces. Okay. 9, and then if we go to 10, it starts to break pretty heavily. What is the size of this box? Currently it's a 10 by 10. I think 10 by 10 might be the right size. Just gonna worry about getting the shape right, I think, first. Interesting. Oh, wrong value. Okay, why is this a half size? I think this has to be an even number at these pixel sizes. Yeah, okay, that fixed it. I don't know if it's easy to tell what it's fixing, but it's fixing things. Okay, and then this value, if it's a 1, it's fine. If it's a 2, it's a pretty cramped. It looks like it could be over 1. Yeah, we can't really be a half pixel. Okay. So, we've been quietly poking at stuff for a little bit here and not really saying a whole lot because we're kind of trying to figure out Oh, weird. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this UI, but why is that so different? There are default values being changed for the 2 and stuff, and I don't know where those are happening. Here. Revert. Revert. And revert. Okay. Something else is still wrong with this setup here. It's at least closer. Okay, so something's really weird about this ability or this input center. Why can't I see all the ability, I want to be able to revert all the values that are different on this thing. Why do I have to manually go through that on every single one? There should be an ability to revert all of them. And I'm not sure how we got into this state where a bunch of these things have modified values. Odd. Very odd. Okay, so those are set up again. So I think this doesn't look great. I'm trying to figure out a way to make this look like pretty good, to be like, oh, you're leveling up. But I kind of don't love it. So I think for now, let's just get the fill bars operating. Because this iconography for the 2 here just feels bad. And then again, this is going to change per value. Ooh, the 4 is awful. Yeah, it's slightly based off of the font differences too. So like 6 is more to the left. 4 is a little bit more feeling to the right. It's kind of just based off of the font itself and the way the letters are placed. Okay. For now, let's assume no level indicator. And let's just try and do just the fill bar. So we will place one of these underneath each of these. So this should be at 4, -4, 4, -4, and this should be 1, 1, 1. Please remove any scaling. And I think actually we might want it above. Yeah, this looks awful. Bottom aligned, -4. Okay. Let's just get it all functional, and then we will take a harder look at it after. That's closer. Okay, this should be flipped. And then this anchor point on the pivot should be different too. Okay, now they're all relatively the same positions. All right, and now each of these have ability infos associated with them. We need to make an ability info experience bar component, and that needs to have the fill bar associated with it. And we're going to need to do that for each of these. Ability info, experience bar, fill bar. Okay. And then we should be able to at least test this. Interesting. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. So the abilities aren't set. So we do need to do a little bit of work here where if the stored data is null, which I guess is what was being done here. This actually solves something else I want to do, though. So if stored data is not null and the ability is not null, do all this stuff. Else, I want you to set active this object to false, and then up here we can set active to true. So this is going to hide the progress bar if it doesn't find an ability associated with that button. And then we're going to need to modify that input center prefab. So inside of this thing, we're now going to need to give it the background as the thing to turn off. Okay, so when we first load in here, we should see no difference. All these bars should be hidden. Yeah, those are all hidden progress bars. And so then if we go back to the Goddess Realm and equip a couple of the new abilities, we should see those progress bars appear when we come back in. This is another new dungeon music from the Pan-Man Dungeon Pack 2.0. Metal Caverns. Or Metal Cavern. I don't feel like this fits us with infinite retries, but it's a neat track. What happened? Sorry, I was changing the music and we just locked up, but with no errors? Interesting. Did we load into the realm, but with... What is happening? What scene are we in? We are in the goddess realm, but nothing's happening when we hit the A button? But there's no errors. How did we break that by adding a couple of progress bars? Or is this related to us hitting the build button? Oh, goodness. Did we break loading between scenes? Okay, we can load between those. And we're able to load into here. Okay. Weird. I don't love the way the progress bars are looking off the bat here. But it's just gray box. Strixie can help with like building out the rest of the actual look. Yeah, somehow we broke going from here to the goddess realm. What did we do that like broke this? We didn't even touch any of this. Okay. Yeah, because we didn't really do anything in here. At least I didn't think so. Okay. Well. That's pretty broken. How do we want to handle this? I think I'm fading a little bit. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to get food. So I think I'm going to stop for probably half an hour to an hour, recoup, probably take a look at some of this while eating some dinner, and then probably come back around somewhere around 7:50, 8 p.m. PST. So hour and 10 minutes from now. I want to take a look through some of the files that we've been changing as well, because I think we've been making a lot of changes lately, and I probably should like do a commit. Yeah, let's take a break for food. Let's re-energize, and then we'll come back around an hour from now, and I'll probably go for another 2 hours after that. No worries. Thanks for hanging out on Unlockable Characters. And yeah, Morphus, just a little break. I mean, this is gonna be it. Like, in case you missed yesterday's stream, we are going. We're gonna be streaming today, tomorrow, Thursday. Gonna have a couple days off. Friday, Saturday. We'll be back Sunday. We're gonna be streaming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then Saturday, Sunday. Then the following week, we're going to do only 4 streams that week because of holidays. And then I haven't quite figured out what week 4 looks like here. But basically, over the next month or so, we're going to be streaming 4 to 5 days a week. We'll see if that burns me out. I might pull back and just do some offline coding and development stuff. But so far, it has been very productive doing these streams. I've made a lot of progress. So I'm going to try and get as much time as I can in each day. And then some of these times will also be off stream working with Trixie on some of the art and stuff. Yeah, yesterday's stream, we kind of broke this down. It was very rambly, and I felt like I was just like lost for 2.5 hours. But I think in the end, it actually did give a good overview of like the remaining work. There's still a lot more to be discovered, I think. But anyways, we'll be back in an hour. I'm going to grab some food, and we will come back then. For now, though,